Hey everyone, Ralph here. In this video, I'm going to build an app that a lot of you reached out and asked me to do based on a previous tutorial. It's going to be an app that allows you to bulk generate product image alt text using AI. The way that it's going to work is that we have this little UI that allows merchants to say if they want to use computer vision AI or not to do it. And what we're going to do is just click this. We're going to go to our product here. We can see this one doesn't already have an alt text. We can add a tag here, or we can bulk add tags as well to several products. We can sit here. We're going to do add tags. Hit this one right here, save it. Give the AI a few seconds to do this. We can see in our logs how this is happening for all of these products. We see that they've been written. And now if we go back to our helmet here, we can see how it has added an alt text here. In the next 35 minutes, I'm going to explain all of the steps that you need to take to build this app, and it uses just 144 lines of code. And you can use it with or without the computer vision AI, and otherwise it's just using GPT-3.5, the title, the description to generate an alt text when you add a tag to a product. So let's get into it. All right, so to get started, we're going to be building our Shopify app in Gadget. If you're not familiar with Gadget, it's the fastest way to build Shopify apps. It's essentially a fully hosted, full stack Shopify app development platform where you get both the backend and the front end, and you can build Shopify apps in hours rather than days or weeks. And what we'll be doing today is building a custom app, but you might as well build it as a public app and ship it to the App Store if that's something that you would want to do. You can find out more information at Gadget about Gadget at gadget.dev. Sign up for a free account. I naturally have an account because I work at Gadget, so I'm just going to go ahead and click log in. Then here I'm going to click new app, and then here I'm going to be asked to name my app, and this is the screen that you should be seeing at the end of the sign up flow if you're new. So you can change the name of your app at any time in the future, so don't worry too much about it. I'm just going to call this bulk image alt text demo, and then just hit get started. So what you're going to get here is a fully productionized app backend living on the internet. You got your unique URL here that is alive and kicking on the internet that you can use for anything. You're going to have both a development and production environment. We're going to be doing everything in development today, but you could easily deploy it to production here by just clicking deploy changes here. But to make it simple, we're just going to be using the development environment, and I won't go through all of the cool things that you get out of the box with Gadget, but I'll show you sort of the core things that you need to know when you're building Shopify apps. If you want to learn more, I suggest you go to gadget.dev and read our documentation, or check one of my other tutorials where I build other types of Shopify apps. Now, what we want to do is we want to build a Shopify app. So I'm going to click this connect to Shopify button over here. And here, Gadget is going to ask me for a Shopify client ID and Shopify client secret. To get that, we got to go over to our Shopify partners dashboard. So I got a tab open, shopify.com/partners. If it's your first time, you've never used Shopify partners, you can sign up for free. You need it to build development stores and to build apps. So if you want to follow this tutorial, you just got to sign up. And I'm going to log in here. And once you're in here, again, if you're new, I suggest that you start by creating a development store. It's 100% free. Just add a store, create a development store, create a test store to build. And then here at the very bottom, start with test data. And all you got to do is give your store a name, and you get a store that has a bunch of useful products and orders and whatnot in it. Once you've done that, or if you already have one, let's go ahead and click apps out here in the left-hand corner. We're going to be creating a new app, so I'll click that. We're going to create an app manually, and I'm just going to go ahead and call this alt text bulk generator. Let's call it image alt text bulk generator to be a little bit more specific. So let's hit create here. And next we can see what that we have our client ID and client secret here. So let's copy that over to Gadget because that's what we wanted. Great. Let's then hit connect here. We don't need to save this. And what you're seeing on this screen is essentially all of the various Shopify API scopes that you can use to build your app in Gadget. Now, this can be a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot of things to choose from here, and you definitely do not need all of them. So let's think a little bit about what it is, or when you come to this page, think about what you want your app to do, because those are the scopes that you want to select. Everything else you shouldn't select. You should only select the data and the capabilities that you need. In our case, we want to be able to read and write product data. So we want to know when a product gets updated by adding a tag to it. We want to be able to read the product description, the product title, and the product image. Then we want to be able to write the product alt text or image alt text back to Shopify. So it sounds like product. So let's go ahead and search for products, and we can see that there's this product scope here. So we want to read and write, so I'm going to click the right one here. And then here you can see that Gadget breaks down the product scope into various sub models. Because the product scope is pretty big, there's a lot of information that we may not care about. So rather than filling up our local database in our Gadget app with information that we don't really need, we can go ahead and select only the things that we need. So we need product, which has the core product information, and then we need a product image. In my case, I don't need options, I don't need variants, selling plans, events, collections, etc. It's not necessary for what we're building. So I'm not going to select these because I don't want that data. I don't want that knocking around in my database. I don't want to have to pay for it. So once that is done, we can go ahead and scroll down. And if you ever build a public Shopify app, there's a bunch of options down here that will be useful for you when you're building billing, etc. But for this tutorial, we're just going to skip it and we're just going to hit confirm. And what you can see happening in the left-hand side here is that Gadget created a bunch of data models for all of these scopes that we selected and some other useful things. We're going to have a look at that in just a minute. But first, I want to just complete the connection setup here. So Gadget has given us 2 different URLs, an app URL and a allowed redirection URL. It's going to copy the first one here and go over to our Shopify partners dashboard here. In the left hand side, I'm going to click app setup, and we can see that Shopify also have 2 input boxes here that says app URL and allowed redirection URL. So let's paste these values that Gadget gives us into Shopify. This essentially gives Shopify information about where on the internet this app that we're building lives, and it's our our Gadget app, right? You can see because we're using the development environment, we have this -- development. If we built a production one, we would remove those, or we would get URLs that doesn't have that. But again, we're doing everything in development today to make it simple. Once that is done and saved, let's click overview, and we're actually ready to install this on a store. So I'm gonna go here to test your app. There's to select the store here that we want to test it on. I usually open this in a new tab, so I have this available if I need it. And then I'm going to select the store that I want this to be installed on. I'm going to use this Catalina wine mixer store because I have some products that is going to be useful for our demo. So let's hit install app. And if you've built a Shopify app before, and this is the first time you use Gadget, you might think, wait, aren't we supposed to set up a bunch of OAuth configurations? We got to do some security headers, all of those things that we got to do before we can install an app. With Gadget, you don't have to. It's one of the things that comes out of the box. So we can see this OAuth screen already available to us. We can just hit install app, and because Gadget has set up all of that boilerplate out of the box, you don't have to do it. We actually have an app that is ready to pass the Shopify App Store review from a technical perspective, check all the boxes. In just this little time, we now have a Shopify app installed on this store with a front end powered by Gadget that you can change and ship to the App Store. And as long as your app functionality, your listing, and this UI looks good, it will be approved for the App Store. Now again, this embedded app is live on the internet. This is not your local host running this. This is powered by Gadget online. So we can actually just show you how easy it is to change this. So it says this page is powered by shoppage.jsx. So I'm going to click that. It opens the file editor of this code file in my Gadget app. And we can go ahead and change something here. So this little text here, bulky image, alt text demo is successfully connected to Shopify. Let's go ahead and say yay. And if we now go over here, we can see that, got to refresh. We can see that this text now shows up. So all of this is live on the internet. So now we've created a backend, we've created a front end that is our embedded UI that we see here. Now it's time to sort of put all of the unique details into our app that makes it the actual app that we want it to do. So to repeat, what is it that we want it to do? Well, I want to have a UI here that allows a merchant to be able to click a checkbox if they want to use the computer vision AI to generate alt text, or if they just want to use GPT-3.5. And then we want to add a code file that takes that information, listens to a product update webhook when someone or when the merchant adds a tag, and then runs through logic to go and figure out what API we should be using, generate the alt text, and write that back to Shopify. So let's go back to Gadget and do all of this. I'm going to close this one right here. So there's a couple of things that we want to do. Let's start with the front end and set that up, and then we'll move over to the back end and sort of the code file that does that. So like I said previously, Gadget creates a bunch of these models for you in your local database. So we can see product image, product, Shopify product. We got Shopify sync that I'll explain in a minute. We give you a Shopify GDPR request model out of the box. If you're building a public app, you can make sure that you meet the sort of GDPR requirements from Shopify out of the box. Then we have this Shopify shop model. So all of these are wired up to Shopify's APIs, and all of them have these fields. You can think about them as data models, and all of these models have these fields that correspond to the APIs that we said we want to use. So for Shopify product, we have which shop it belongs to, title, when it was updated, any tags, status, publish scope, etc., etc. And these will contain all of the product images, product data, etc. that exist on the store. And I'll show you how to get that data in a minute. And on our Shopify shop model, this will contain the information about any store that installs your app. So you have all of these various fields that has information about the store. If we click data here, we can actually see, let me close this. Because I've already installed this on a store, we have a record here. It says created, installed. If you scroll a little bit further back, you see domain, catalinawinemixers.myshopify.com. So this is information about the store that was just installed. Now, what we want to add right in this UI is this little flag, a Boolean that says, does the merchant want to use the image recognition or the computer vision AI or not? Shopify is not going to store that context. That's very unique to our app. We're not going to store that in Shopify, but we can store it in this model. So all of this information will be populated by Shopify using webhooks when a merchant installs an app, but we can add our own fields to this model. So in fields here, I'm going to go ahead and click the plus button. I'm going to go ahead and name this field use image. And I'm going to make it a Boolean, and I'm just going to set the default value to false. Now, because the record has already been created, this is not going to update it to false, but it's always good practice to have it there. And then the next thing that we want to do is that all of these models, if we go and click on these actions, all of these models have triggers, and triggers you can think about what is it that it's going to add data, update data, delete data. Because all of these are Shopify models, we want Shopify to be the source of truth and what triggers updates and creates and deletes. So all of these are wired up to Shopify's webhooks, so we make sure that we only update it when we get a webhook from Shopify. But in our case, Shopify is not going to emit a webhook when the merchant updates something in the UI. So we want to add the capability for us to use our own API that Gadget generates to update that information. So on the Shopify shop model, on the update action, under triggers here, there's a plus sign. Let's click that. We're going to add a trigger. We're going to add the Gadget API, and it's going to allow us to build an API call that updates this field right here. So once we've done that, let's go ahead and add the UI that allows the merchant to click that checkbox that will change the value here. And like I said previously, this entire page is powered by shoppage.jsx. So that lives under files in our Gadget project here. We have a folder called frontend. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And here you can see we have this shop page, and we have app.jsx, and we have a couple of other files. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be replacing these and adding a new file that has the UI that we want to use. I'm not going to be coding that live because I'm a terrible React coder, but all of the code files and the information that you need to complete this is available in the video description. So you don't have to figure out what I have on my screen. I will explain it, but you can copy paste these from the resources in the video description. So let's start with shop page. What we're going to do here is just that, or actually we're going to start with, app.jsx is what we want to replace. We just want to replace the shop page here and a shop page reference down here. But I'm just going to copy and paste the file that I have that you have in the video description. You can see we have an app settings page here, and we're using that here. That doesn't exist here, so let's go ahead and create that. So in the frontend folder, we can create a file here. We're going to call it app settings.jsx, capital A, capital S, hit enter. And then again, I'm going to be copy pasting a file that you can find in the video description. It's very simple. It's just using some React capabilities here. We're using Gadget's React package, some Polaris components, and then we have this const image that we export here, and that just have a couple of state management functionalities, a use effect, image handled use image that we're using in the checkbox, and then a very simple set of Polaris components here that if we refresh this page, we can see what it looks like. It's essentially just a little bit of text and a checkbox. And because the value in our Shopify shop model here is set to null, this is going to not be checked. But if we click this and refresh this, we can see that it's now set to true. And if we uncheck it and we again refresh, we can see that it's set to false. So our front end, this is now talking to our backend. Both of them live in Gadget, but we're now setting or updating this field that we have right here to true or false, depending on if the merchant says that they want to use the computer vision AI or not. I'm going to keep it to false because it's what we'll start with when we're testing this out. So now we have the front end and the configuration set up. Now let's think about the back end. But the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to go ahead and sync some data, because right now I have a bunch of products in my store, all of these, but none of them exist in this data model. We got the Shopify shop in here because we got it installed. Shopify embedded a webhook, we stored that, but I want to go ahead and fill my data models in Gadget with these records that I have. So you can do this programmatically. I'm not going to do it in this tutorial. So you can sync data automatically when a store installs your app. But I'm going to go ahead to Connections, Shopify, to this one shop install here. And then I'm going to click this sync button. And what that does is that it reaches out to Shopify and says, hey, I want to download all of this data that you have for the scopes that I've installed. In our case, it's product and product images. And then if we go ahead and click on product here, we can see that we actually have all of these products. And we click on product images, we have all of these product images. So we want to do that before we move on. And again, you could easily create a script that automatically does this when a shop installs your store. Some apps don't need historical data, then don't do it because you don't need to store that in your local database. So it depends on your use case. But the way that I've coded this code file, or the way that I've structured the code file, we need to have these records on our gadget database. And whenever something changes in Shopify, we'll get webhooks, these will be updated. So now going forward, this gadget app will always have the latest information from Shopify. So the way that it's going to work is that a merchant is going to go to a product, they're going to add a tag, save that tag, and we want our Shopify app to listen to that and then go ahead and execute the logic that we're going to add. So the way to do that in Gadget is that we can think about the action that the merchant takes is on a product, they're adding a tag. Like I said, we've wired up all of these models to Shopify webhooks. So we can see we have actions here, create, update, and delete. So whenever a product gets created, this will trigger. Whenever a product gets updated, this will trigger. Whenever a product gets deleted, this gets triggered. In our case, we want to listen to these Shopify update webhooks. And when a webhook comes in saying a product was updated, we want to run some custom code, right? And you can do that in Gadget in our effect stack here. So at the very bottom for Shopify product update, we can see that there's this success effect, add code snippet. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to click this. Gadget provides us a default JavaScript file that we can use. Just going to go ahead and enter a full screen here. If you prefer to not use a web editor, use VS Code, Sublime, or whatever, you can easily sync sync the code files from your Gadget project to your local computer and have a real-time sync between your computer and Gadget. I'm not going to be using that today, but it's available down here. It's called the Gadget CLI or file sync. But I'll be using the web editor just to make it a little bit simpler. And what we want to do is essentially put our logic into this file that will do the updates that I was talking about. Again, I'm not going to be coding that live, but I will be pasting it in here. Again, this is available in the video description. I'm going to walk through it in a few minutes, but I think it's easier to show it in action and then explain the code file versus doing the reverse. There's just two things that we got to do before we go ahead and try this. Because we're using OpenAI, we're going to need to add the OpenAI package to our package.json. And we also got to add the API keys that we need to use for these services. Let's start with the OpenAI npm package. So because Gadget is using node.js, we have a package.json here. So just going to go ahead and add the OpenAI npm package, which I believe is running 3.2.1. Again, this information is going to be in the video description. You don't have to remember this. We're going to run yarn, let that run, and then we're going to go to our settings for our applications. We're going to go to we're going to go to environment variables. And then going to add environment variables where we can store our API keys for OpenAI and the computer vision API. Now, in this video tutorial, I'm not going to walk you through how to get those if you don't have it. In the video description, I've left the link to a walkthrough, a step-by-step walkthrough of how to get these keys. You have to sign up for OpenAI's developer portal. It's not the same as ChatGPT. It's free to do so. Just got to add a card on file, and then you would have to pay for the usage that you're doing in API calls, which for GPT 3.5 is very, very cheap. And similarly for the Azure Computer Vision API, again, it takes a few minutes to sign up. It isn't that hard with the step-by-step guide that I have, so go and check that. Once you have that, we're going to go ahead and add these environment variables. So I'm clicking add variable, and then you want to make sure that the names are exactly as I have it here, and they are available in the video description. So just copy those in here. If you don't name them correctly, your code is not going to work. So I'm going to be putting my keys in here. You get yours. Add them here, and if you want to encrypt them, you just click this little encryption key lock here. Now, our package.json ran correctly here, so that's good. Now we're ready to try this app. So we have a product here. Let's go ahead and add a tag to it. We can see it already has an alt text, so let's go ahead and remove that. And make sure that if we refresh, we can see that it's still not here. We just have this default from Shopify. Now we want to add a tag to trigger our product to generate an alt text. I don't remember which tag I said it would be, so I'm going to go over to our code file here. I can see that we're waiting for the add alt text tag to be present for us to run our script. So I'm going to go ahead and add that tag to this product right here. Just hit save. And what this does, again, Shopify updates this product, emits this webhook to anyone that is listening to it saying this product got updated along with information. Our product, our app is listening to that webhook, sees that something has changed. It sees that this tag is present, runs the logic that generates image alt text, and then removes the tag. So if we refresh this product now, I would expect the tag to be gone. And if we go in here, we can see that we now have a product description. This product description is based on the title and the description because we didn't check the box for using the image, the computer vision AI. So let's go ahead and try that as well. So let's go back to our app, go to the image alt text generator, which is the UI that we created. And when you're using the development environment and the front end, sometimes the front end is a little bit slow because we have a lot of niceties in the development environment. But when you're using the production environment for the front end, it's a lot snappier. So let's go ahead and click this. Now we're going to use the computer vision AI. Let's go back to product, our Allure helmet here. Let's make sure that we remove the alt text. And then similarly, we're just going to go ahead and add a tag or the tag. And this is now similarly submitting a webhook. Our product, our app is listening to that. We see that this Boolean is set to true, saying, hey, we want to use the computer vision AI API. And I think that if we refresh now, we should see that the tag is gone. And if we click here, we can now see that the image alt text looks a little bit different because now it says black Allure helmet with black strap. That information is not available in the description. That is information that this computer vision AI could figure out was in the image and uses that. So when you're using the computer vision AI, you get a little bit more information. For some products, it might be better. For others, it won't. But here you have the option to choose to use it or not to use it. Now that we know what the merchant experience looks like, let's go ahead and look at the code that powers this. So In the Shopify product model here, we added this code file on update, so we can click on it here, or you have it down here under files, Shopify product update on update success. Clicking either of these will open it. And what we have here is 144 lines of code that does all of these things for us. So first of all, we're requiring two packages, the OpenAI one that we talked about previously and Axios. And then all of all of Gadget's custom code that we're adding are wrapped in these module export functions. That gives you access to our internal API, to the record that is being run, the parameters, the logger, connections to Shopify, etc. So you get a lot of niceties out of the box. That means that you just have them available, and show you that in here. As an example, we want to make sure if the product tag is added to the product, because if Shopify merchants add a random tag that has nothing to do with our app, we don't want to run all of this code. So we're just checking if the params.shopifyproduct.tags is has this tag right here, and if it has, we're going to go ahead and run all of our code. What I start with doing here is just fetching the product image and image URL, so we can use that if we want to send it off to the computer vision AI. Could technically put it further down, because we don't always need this if we're not using the computer vision AI. You could also, so what I'm doing here, I'm using api.shopifyproduct.find many, and then I'm passing in the record ID. So we're running this code for a specific product. We have the ID available to us through the record here that we have in the context. So I'm just filtering out to find that product. We could also be using the Shopify product image API if we wanted to. Then I'm just storing that information, so we have the ID and the URL to the image available to us. And then I just want to find some Shopify shop information. Remember that we have this checkbox that can be either true or false. So we're just going to find if that is set to true or false. So we're going to be calling our api.shopify shop.find1. And then we're passing in the shop of the specific product that is being run. And then we're just checking, does this shop that this product belongs to, do they have this use image field set to true or false? We're storing that in this variable right here. Then we're setting up our OpenAI configuration, and this is where this environment variable that we set up previously is stored. Again, if you don't have the correct name when you create that, this field is not going to work, and your API calls to OpenAI will not succeed. And then we're just creating a couple of placeholder variables that we will store some information in. And then again, if this use image boolean is set to true, we're going to run this information down here. And what that does is that it just configures a API call that we're essentially saying that we want to have the caption functionality, we want to use English, we want to use, we're not using gender neutral caption. You can change this. We're just passing in the Azure API key. The body of the request that we're using is going to use this product.image source, which is just the URL to the product image for this product that is stored on Shopify. Then we're sending that off to this Microsoft Azure endpoint, and you would just need to change the details here according to what you sign up for. Again, the written information in the video description will explain what you should be using here. Then we get the computer vision response back, so we store that. We check if we have any errors and make sure that we log that to our logger in case we get some errors. And then I just put a logger info here saying what was returned. And then here we're going to set the prompt text for the GPT-3.5 prompt. So I'm saying here, write a short alt text for a product image described by an image recognition as, and then what we get back from the image recognition AI, or computer vision AI, it should say. The product is title, and then I give it the Shopify product title, and the product description is, and then I pass the product description. And if we weren't using the, or if the merchant has said, I don't want to use the image recognition AI, we have an else statement here that just makes a little bit of a simpler prompt that is just write a short alt text for a product image. The product is titled, the title, and the product description is the record.body, which is the product description. Then we just call out to our OpenAI endpoint using GPT-3.5 Turbo. I got the system message saying, you're a helpful e-commerce assistant, helping to write alt text for product images to improve SEO. And then I'm providing this prompt text that is set to either this or this, depending if we use the image recognition AI. So if you wanted to play around with the prompts, you would change this if you're using the image computer vision AI, this if you're not, and then if you want to play around with the system message, you just change this. And then we get the response back from GPT 3.5, which is the alt text. Now we just want to store that in Shopify. So I just put a little bit of a logger info here, putting that information to our logs. Now, there's a really important thing that you need to know. So when we're adding this tag to our product, it indicates to our script here that when that tag is present, we want to run all of this code. Now, when we write the updated product image description to Shopify, Shopify stores that. That's exactly the same thing as if a merchant went into their admin, changed it, saved it, because that is going to emit a Shopify webhook. Now, if that Shopify webhook includes this tag, our script is going to look at that. It's going to say the tag is there. I'm going to run all of this code. Then I'm going to update this product image alt text. And again, if we don't remove the tag, Shopify is going to emit another webhook, and we're going to get into this infinite loop. So this piece right here is extremely important. What it does is that it removes the tag from the update that it sends to Shopify, and essentially adding the new image alt text, and removing the tag from any tags that exist on the product, making sure that when Shopify emits the next update webhook, that tag no longer exists, which means that our script will not run a second time. If you change the text, if you change the tag that you want to use in your script, you have to change it up here and you have to change it down here, or you will end up in an infinite loop, and that will mean that your app is just going to run forever until you run out of cloud resources and your app gets paused. You don't want that to happen. So make sure that you have that here and that the correct tag that you're using is here. The last little bit here is just very simple. We're just going to construct our Shopify API update here. We're just passing in the ID of the image that we want to create the alt text on. We're passing in the image alt text, and we're passing in the new product tags, which is essentially any product tags that exist on this product, minus the one that we are using at alt text for the reasons that I just explained. And then we're just passing that using shopify.product.update, pass in the record ID, which is the product ID that we're running all of the script on, and this information that we've set here. And that's all that this app does. It does it 144 lines of code, and everything else when it comes to the boilerplate is up for us. And I already demoed it for you, so I'm not going to go and show it again. But now you understood what happens, and you also understand that when we refresh this page, we can see the alt text, and you can also see why the tag is removed here once we refresh the page and Shopify has gotten the update from our app. Okay, that wasn't that hard, was it? So I hope that you found this tutorial useful, and I would love to hear if you end up using this app, either for your own store or maybe for a client or for anyone else. Do let me know down below. And if you found this useful, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. It helps the channel. And while you're at it, maybe consider subscribing as well so you can catch any of my future videos. If you want to build other tutorials or other Shopify apps, go ahead and check my other tutorials. Otherwise, I might see you in a future video. But for this time, thank you so much for watching. Bye.